Newcastle are said to be closing in on the signing of Hugo Ekitike, and he was obviously linked to Liverpool in the past, but it looks like he's actually going to head to St James's Park. But the more significant news for Liverpool is that Ekitike going there might have somewhat of an impact on Isak. I've already personally started to believe that we'll sign him because I want to believe it. But how much of an impact do you think Ekitike's arrival could have on the future of Isak? Because people have said that they could play together, but again, maybe that's not something that Eddie Howe looks at.
Yeah, it's. I'd certainly say it doesn't seem to kind of lessen the chances of Liverpool signing Isak, does it? I mean, you just think it's very, very hard to see Newcastle going down the route of a kind of a 4-4-2, given their options. I think, Elanga, for me, makes more sense as a winger in a 4-3-3. You think they've got Gordon, they've got Barnes, who are definitely options in a 4-3-3 as wingers. So, unless you're going to kind of shoehorn Ekitike into one of those wide roles, I know he can be comfortable wide, but he isn't a winger, is he? He's definitely not a starting winger. I think he is a centre forward, so he's going to be more comfortable up front. And how easy is it to sell to him that he's a rotational option for Alexander Isak, or that he's sometimes going to be getting starts off the left hand side? I just don't think a player who is as in demand in the market would be so up for a role like that. Really, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, and the way he profiles so similarly to Isak as well. I mean, if you were a club who was looking to replace him, he'd be the ideal signing, really. And I know, look, Newcastle pretty adamant at the moment, aren't they? They're not looking to sell Isak, and kind of difficult to unpick whether that's a position or a legitimate stance that they're taking, rather than just trying to project that they don't want to sell and therefore pushing the price up. But I find it very difficult to imagine how they have sold to Ekitike the idea of coming to play for them if it's not to be a regular starter in the current system that they use, one that doesn't require them to kind of jettison the wingers that they've got that are very 4-3-3 orientated, or to break up that midfield three, which for me was arguably the best in the Premier League last season. It really, really worked. I thought it was fantastic. So just that, to shift everything in that way, it would be a big surprise to me. Now, one thing you can't rule out is that, yes, he is the Isak replacement, but he's kind of coming in a season early. And they're going to use a season to bed him in before and keep hold of Isak and have a real crack at the Champions League and have a real crack at the Premier League this season. So that I don't think you can guarantee that Isak goes, but I think it's much easier to see a world where he goes, where he goes to Liverpool or wherever once Newcastle have signed Ekitike. So if you're Liverpool, that's surely slightly encouraging, I would say, at the very least, albeit it doesn't guarantee anything.
Well, if you're Ekitike, you would also want to play as much as possible, considering it's a World Cup year. So the idea of him potentially being on the bench for Isak for most of the season, even if the plan is to have him in the team the following season and then sell Isak, maybe that's not something that's appealing to him. But
that's a good shout, by the way, because it's not like France are short of attacking options either. So, that's competitive squad to get into. Like, as you say, I think that, the only way you can do that is to play games regularly, to score goals, to make sure that you secure your place. So, I didn't even kind of really think of that, but it kind of adds to your feeling of how have they sold it to him, if not that you are going to get regular games, and how does he get regular games in that, unless they switch this 4-4-2, which I really struggle to see them doing. It's it's encouraging for Liverpool, I'd say, what's happening there. Let's
go into the scenario where Liverpool now have an opportunity to sign Isak because of Ekitike arriving. Do you think that there is a realistic price cutoff point for Liverpool? Because I think we all accept that Isak is going to cost more than Wirtz if he was to sign for the club. But Liverpool reportedly do have a high spending capacity. So again, I know you've mentioned before that this could be dependent on sales and things like that. So where do you see the price point?
I don't think Liverpool would want to go anywhere north of 150 million. And I don't think they would ideally be close to that, really. I think they would kind of, if you 130 odd, if you're into 140, anything kind of beyond that seems a little outrageous, really, because there's always a chance with a player as good as he is that he comes in and has real injury problems or whatever, or it just doesn't work out for. That would probably be the only reason it wouldn't work out, because the quality of the player, it's hard to imagine him not fitting in and scoring goals. But I think the injuries would be the only worry there, really. So I think that's the kind of price tag you're looking at, and I think it does need sales. There are some candidates for sales in that front line all across the pitch, really, actually, that futures with question marks over in this Liverpool squad. So I think Liverpool would, as much as they've got great spending capacity, they do need to start putting some sales together now. But if they do that, I think they'll put themselves in a position where they could, they'll almost make back the money that they've already spent in the market, get back to zero, and then have the chance to kind of go out and splash big money on someone like an Isak. So, sales will be important. There's no question about that. But equally, it's very easy to see where those sales come from, because there are so many candidates for departures in this squad who don't really clearly have a big role to play next season, but could generate serious money if you were to sell them. So, it doesn't feel out the realms of possibility, that's for sure.